Hello everyone, hope you're having a great day. My name is Fernando. Today I'm going to explain to you how the fourth dimension works. Let's start by defining what is a dimension. A dimension is a certain way in that an object or something can be measured. For example, in its height, in its length, or even its time. It all depends on what dimension you're in and what you're trying to measure. To understand higher dimensions, we need to understand what is zero dimensions. If something has zero dimensions, it means that it's not measurable at all. For example, this point here, it's completely unmeasurable. It has no dimensions. It's just a point in space. It has no height, no width, no length, nor nothing. What would happen if, for example, we move this point parallel to itself, making a line? Now that we have a line, it no longer has only zero dimensions. It has one dimension, that its length. We can measure this line, not like the point. The point was completely unmeasurable. What would happen if, for example, as well as a point, we move this line perpendicular to itself, making a space? Once we moved our line perpendicular to itself, we got a plane. A plane, as you can see, has two dimensions that are length or width and width. These dimensions are, of course, an expansion of the only one dimension that the line had. If we move our plane perpendicular to itself, like this, we'll get a three-dimensional object because we're expanding a two-dimensional one. Once we've expanded our two-dimensional space, we go through a three-dimensional space. And yes, a cube, one of the most common and known shapes that we study in maths. As you see, a cube has already three dimensions. As you can see, it has front, width, and the height. Let me show you something really interesting about a cube. As you can see, that is only a projection of a cube. It's not actually a cube, it's a projection of a three-dimensional object in a two-dimensional space. Now, what happens to this projection? It doesn't really look like a cube. A cube is supposed to have all its sizes the same size and all the vertices of the same angles. In this case, as you can see, some angles are completely different to others, and the sides don't really look the same size. That's why it's only a projection, it's not the actual 3D object. We've finally gotten on the point of the video of explaining the fourth dimension. For this, it is really important that you understand the previous point I'd explained, because we're not going to see four-dimensional objects. We're just going to see their projection in a three-dimensional space. That's why they're going to look completely different of what they would actually look like in a four-dimensional space. Either their vertices or their angles aren't going to look all the same size. That's because it is only a projection. When we are looking at a four-dimensional object in a three-dimensional space, it's going to look quite like the cube we saw in the previous point. Because though it will be a regular object, not all its vertices or its sides will look the same. They will look completely different for the fact that they're being projected, not seen in a four-dimensional space. This is how the actual projection of a four-dimensional cube or a hypercube would look like. Let's see it spin. This is another projection from a shape called a simplex. It's a four-dimensional shape based on a tetrahedron. Here we can see another example of a four-dimensional object. The most interesting part of this object is that it only exists in a four-dimensional space. It has no relative in a three-dimensional space. As you can see, while it spins, it's way more complicated than the simplex or the hypercube due to its amount of sides and angles. As you can see here, the amount of four-dimensional objects are completely limitless, just the same as of three-dimensional objects. Let's return to our point. I'm going to explain something really curious about how dimensions work. If we have a point and we are in a higher dimension, for example, if we had a line here, we could reach that point without being interrupted by something in the same dimension as the point. It sounds complicated, but it's really isn't. If we are here in a line, the point is, as its name says, only a point. We can just get to it and touch it, with nothing in that dimension interrupting our way. The same would happen to a line. If we have a line and we are in a two-dimensional space, we have a one-dimensional object in a two-dimensional space. So that means we have, imagine this is a plane and the line is in the middle of it. We can reach any point in the line without being interrupted by anything that's within the same dimension as the line. For example, if we had to go from here to here in the line without an extra dimension, that's a second dimension, we would need to go through everything that's in the line to get to the point we want. But if we're in a second dimension, we can simply reach it from another point. Let's make the same example, but with a plane. Imagine you have a closed space here. So if you are in the two-dimensional space of the plane, the only way of getting to here is by breaking through whatever is in the way. But if we are in a third dimension, we can simply reach it. Imagine we did the same thing that we did with a plane, but with a cube. In a cube, or in a three-dimensional space, you can only reach things going in a straight line to them. If you have a closed space, the only way of getting to it is by breaking through. If we had a fourth dimension, as we did with a point, with a line, and with a plane, you can get to it by simply reaching it from the fourth dimension. Let me illustrate my previous explanation. If you have an object in any dimensional space and you have a second object and you try to put them in the same space, it's completely impossible. I mean, you can try it yourself, it's completely impossible to do so. But what if we had an object put in a certain point in the space, and then in a different time we take away that object and put the second one in that same space? As you can see, they were both in the same space, but at a different time. How? Through the fourth dimension, that is time. Thanks a lot for watching this video, hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments, please let me know, questions that I can answer. I'm not a professional, so if I made a mistake or there is any comments or anything about the video, please let me know. And thanks for watching.